I'm Maya. I'm 28 years old, and the first time I realized my parents loved my sister more than me, I was 8 years old, standing in the kitchen, holding a handmade birthday card that nobody read. My mom was frosting a cake for Emma. My sister's birthday was the next day. Mine had been 3 days earlier. "Mom," I said quietly, holding up the card, "I made this at school for my birthday." She barely looked at me. "That's nice, Maya. Put it on the fridge." She didn't even turn around. The cake she was frosting had 3 layers, pink roses made of sugar, and tiny golden letters spelling Emma's Sweet 16. I remember thinking how weird it was that she was planning a 16-year-old birthday party when Emma was only 8. Later, I realized she had just reused the decorations from the party planner catalog. But at 8, it felt like she was already planning a future for my sister that didn't include me. Emma walked in wearing her ballet leotard, her hair in a neat bun. She had always been perfect. Perfect grades, perfect smile, perfect child. "Maya," she said, rolling her eyes, "why are you still wearing that sweater? Mom said you look messy in photos." I looked down at the sweater. It had holes in the sleeves, but it was warm. Mom didn't say anything. She just smiled at Emma. "You're right, honey. Maya, go change. We're taking pictures for Emma's birthday invites." It wasn't even Emma's birthday yet, but it was already about Emma. Growing up, everything was always about Emma. If Emma wanted piano lessons, she got piano lessons. If Emma wanted ballet, they drove her across town twice a week. If Emma needed a tutor, my dad paid for the best one. When I asked for art supplies for school, my mom sighed. "We can't afford everything, Maya. Emma's activities are more important. She has real talent." I learned early that my dreams were considered hobbies. Emma's dreams were considered investments. When I was 12, I found out what college was. Our teacher had shown us a video about scholarships and dorm life. I went home excited, my head full of dreams of big campuses and libraries. "Mom," I said at dinner, "I want to go to college one day. Maybe for engineering or art. I don't know yet." Emma snorted. "You're not smart enough for engineering." My dad laughed like it was a joke. "Let's see if you even graduate high school first, Maya." Mom didn't defend me. She just turned to Emma. "Emma, you'd be great at medicine. Or law. Something prestigious." I felt invisible at that table. The older we got, the clearer it became. Emma was the golden child. I was the backup plan that nobody planned for. Emma got a new car when she turned 16. I got a used bike from a neighbor when I turned 17. Emma got a full college fund account. I got told to apply for scholarships or get a job. I remember overhearing my parents in the kitchen one night. "We should increase Emma's college fund," Mom said. "Private school, med school, she'll need it." "What about Maya?" Dad asked, but his voice was tired, like he already knew the answer. "She'll figure it out. She's resourceful." That was their way of saying they didn't care. By the time Emma graduated high school, my parents had saved enough money to pay for her dream wedding and her college tuition. They talked about it like it was a business plan. "She's going to marry well," Mom said proudly. "We should help her start life the right way." I was 17, sitting on the stairs, listening through the wall. My chest felt tight, like I had swallowed a rock. No one had ever talked about helping me start life. When it was my turn to apply to college, I did everything myself. I stayed late at school to use the computers. I filled out FAFSA forms alone. I wrote essays at night while Emma practiced piano downstairs. One evening, I finally worked up the courage to ask, "Mom, do I have a college fund too?" She didn't even look guilty. "We used what we could for Emma. You can take loans. Lots of people do." Dad nodded. "It builds character." I nodded back, pretending it didn't hurt. But inside, something broke quietly. I still got into a good university. A partial scholarship. Not enough to cover everything, but enough to make it possible with loans. The day the acceptance letter came, I ran into the kitchen. "I got in," I said, shaking the letter. "I really got in." Emma barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice." Mom smiled politely. "That's good, Maya. Just make sure it's not too expensive." Too expensive, for me. For Emma, cost had never been mentioned. Then, 2 years later, everything changed. Emma met Ryan. He was older, charming, from a wealthy family. My mom fell in love with him before Emma did. "He's perfect," she kept saying. "He comes from money. This is your future, Emma." They got engaged after 6 months. Emma was 22. That's when my parents did something I still can't fully process. They took the money from my college fund. I found out by accident. I was checking my student account online when I noticed the balance was almost zero. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Then I called the bank. Your parents withdrew the remaining funds, the representative said. It was authorized. I felt sick. I confronted them that night. Why did you take my college money? I asked, my hands shaking. Mom sighed like I was being dramatic. Emma's wedding is expensive and you're already in school, you can just take loans. That was for my tuition, I whispered. Dad shrugged. Emma's wedding is once in a lifetime. Emma stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Relax, Maya. You're acting like you're entitled to it. Entitled to my own education. I cried in my room that night. Not loud, just silently, staring at the ceiling, realizing that in my family I was always optional. I took out more loans. I worked 2 jobs. I skipped meals. I slept 4 hours a night. Emma's wedding was everywhere. My mom posted photos of the dress, the venue, the flowers. Dream wedding for my dream daughter, she wrote. I attended as a guest, wearing a borrowed dress. My parents sat in the front row. I sat with distant cousins. No one noticed. College was brutal, but it was also the first time I felt free. I studied computer science. I fell in love with coding, with building things, with solving problems that actually had logic, unlike my family. I spent nights in the lab, weekends at hackathons, summers in internships. No one paid for me. No one helped me. But for the first time, everything I achieved was mine. After graduation, I got a job at a small tech company, then a bigger one. Then I started my own project on the side. It started as a budgeting app for students drowning in loans because I knew exactly how that felt. I worked on it at night in tiny apartments, surviving on ramen and coffee. Then one day an investor emailed me. He wanted to meet. Meanwhile, Emma's life was falling apart. Her perfect husband wasn't perfect. He cheated. He spent money. He left. Their marriage lasted 3 years. She moved back home with my parents, and suddenly, the golden child wasn't so golden anymore. That's when she called me. Maya, she said softly, her voice tired. I need a favor. I hadn't heard from her in months. What is it? I'm kind of broke. Ryan drained everything. Can you lend me some money? I almost laughed, almost. The girl whose wedding was paid for with my college fund. The girl who called me entitled. The girl who got everything. Now she needed me. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I thought about 8-year-old me, holding a birthday card no one read. And I realized something. This wasn't just about money. This was about everything. I still remember the sound of the door closing behind me that night. Not slammed. Not dramatic. Just final. I walked down the driveway with my suitcase rolling over the cracked concrete, my mom's words still ringing in my ears. Your sister deserves a perfect wedding. You'll figure out college some other way. The house looked warm and golden through the windows. My sister Lily was in the kitchen laughing, probably planning flower arrangements with Mom. I didn't hate Lily. I hated what our family had turned us into. She was always the golden child. The pretty one. The one who could do no wrong. When she was 5, my mom framed her kindergarten drawings. When I won a science fair at 10, my mom said, "That's nice, honey," and went back to talking about Lily's dance recital. When Lily failed a class, my parents hired a tutor. When I got straight A's, they said, "Good. That's what you're supposed to do." So when they told me they had used my college fund to pay for her wedding, part of me wasn't even shocked. Just tired. I spent that first night on my best friend Mia's couch. Her parents didn't ask many questions. They just gave me a blanket and a bowl of cereal and said I could stay as long as I needed. I cried quietly into the pillow, not because of the money, but because I finally understood that I was never going to be their priority. The next few years were a blur of survival. I worked 2 jobs, one at a coffee shop in the mornings, one at a grocery store at night. I applied for every scholarship I could find. Most of them said no. A few said yes, but not enough to cover everything. So I took out loans. Big ones. I lived in a tiny dorm room with 3 roommates and a broken heater. I ate ramen, toast, and whatever free food the campus events offered. I studied until my eyes burned. While Lily posted photos of her honeymoon in Bali, she and her husband Mark looked perfect. He was tall, charming, from a wealthy family. My mom kept sharing their pictures on Facebook with captions like, "My beautiful daughter and her amazing husband, so proud." She never posted about me. College was hard. Not just academically, emotionally. Every time tuition was due, I felt like I was drowning. Every time I saw a girl whose parents paid for everything, I felt a twist of jealousy and shame. But I also felt something else. A quiet, burning determination. If no one was going to help me, I would build everything myself. I majored in finance and minored in computer science. I spent weekends learning coding, personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship. While other students went to parties, I worked on side projects. I started a blog about budgeting for students. Then I turned it into a small YouTube channel. Then I created a simple budgeting app as a class project. People actually started using it. By my senior year, I had a few thousand users and a tiny bit of ad revenue. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My parents didn't come to my graduation. Mom said Lily was pregnant and too busy to travel. Dad just said congratulations in a short text message. I watched other families hugging their kids, crying, taking pictures. Mia's parents hugged me too. Her mom whispered, "We're proud of you," and I almost broke down right there. After graduation, I moved to a small apartment in another state. I got a job at a fintech startup. The pay was okay, but the hours were brutal. Still, I loved it. I learned how companies grow, how investors think, how products scale. At night, I kept working on my budgeting app. 2 years later, I quit my job. Everyone thought I was crazy, except Mia. She said, "You've always been crazy enough to make it." I spent my savings, lived cheaply, and rebuilt the app from scratch. I hired a freelance designer. I improved the features. I marketed it on social media. Slowly, painfully, it started to grow. 10,000 users, 50,000, 100,000. Then a venture capital firm emailed me. I thought it was spam at first. It wasn't. The day I signed the first investment deal, I sat alone in my apartment and stared at the contract. My hands were shaking. I thought about my parents, about Lily's wedding, about the night I left with my suitcase. I didn't feel revenge. I felt validation, like the universe was saying, "You mattered," even if they didn't see it. My company exploded faster than I ever imagined. We partnered with banks. We got featured in major tech blogs. Users hit 1 million. Investors offered more money, big money. Then 3 years later, a large financial corporation offered to buy my company. The number had so many zeros, I thought there was a typo. There wasn't. I sold. Overnight, I went from struggling student to multimillionaire. I bought a modest house by a lake. Nothing flashy, just peaceful. I donated to scholarships for low-income students. I hired Mia as my head of marketing. She quit her job and cried when I told her. My parents found out through Facebook. Mom messaged me for the first time in years. "I heard about your company. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. We should catch up sometime." I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't reply. Lily's life didn't go the way everyone expected. Mark turned out to be charming only in public. In private, he was controlling, emotionally distant, and obsessed with money. They fought about everything. She wanted to stay home with their baby. He wanted her to maintain a perfect image. 3 years into their marriage, he cheated. She found out through his phone. Their divorce was ugly, expensive, and humiliating. His family's lawyers destroyed her in court. She got a settlement, but not enough to maintain her lifestyle. And she had a toddler to take care of. Mom called me after the divorce was finalized. I almost didn't answer. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly. "Lily's going through a hard time. She might need some help." I already knew what that meant. Money. A week later, Lily called me. Her voice was tired, nothing like the confident girl I grew up with. "Hey," she said. "Can we talk?" We talked for hours. She cried about Mark, about the cheating, about feeling like a failure, about being scared of raising her son alone. I listened. Then she hesitated. "So I was wondering," she said carefully, "if you could maybe lend me some money, just until I get back on my feet." There it was. I thought about my college fund, her wedding, the night I left. I'll think about it. I said. She thanked me like I was saving her life. A month later, my mom invited me to Lily's birthday dinner at a restaurant. A fancy one. I knew what was coming, but I went anyway. For closure. For myself. Mom hugged me like we were best friends. Dad patted my shoulder awkwardly. Lily looked thinner, tired, but still beautiful. During dinner, Mom raised her glass. "I just want to say," she said, smiling at everyone, "how grateful we are that Lily has such a wonderful sister." Family is everything. And we're so lucky to have each other." Then she looked at me and laughed. "Some kids you just wish you didn't have to see at all," she joked, repeating the exact phrase she used years ago, but thankfully that's not the case here. The table laughed awkwardly. My heart stopped. The words hit me like a time machine. For a moment I was 17 again, standing in that hallway with my suitcase. I put down my fork. I looked at her. And I said calmly, "Good news. Mom, your wish just came true." The table went silent. Lily looked confused. Dad stared at his plate. Mom's smile froze. I stood up. "I came here out of respect," I said quietly. "But I'm done pretending we're a happy family. You chose Lily over me my entire life. You took my future to pay for her wedding. You never showed up when I needed you. And now you joke about not wanting to see me?" My voice didn't shake. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done." I looked at Lily. "I'm sorry your marriage ended. I truly am. But I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your emergency fund. I built my life alone, and I'm not going to finance yours." She started crying. Mom tried to say something, but I walked out. I drove back to my lake house that night with the windows down, breathing in the cold air. I didn't feel revenge. I felt free. A few days later, I blocked my parents' numbers. Not out of hate, out of self-respect. Now, every Christmas, I host dinner at my house. Mia comes, her parents come. Some friends, co-workers, and a few students from the scholarship program come too. We cook together, laugh, tell stories. It's loud and messy and warm. It's family. Sometimes I think about Lily, about my parents. I hope they learn something. I hope they treat my nephew better than they treated me. But I don't wait for apologies anymore. I don't need them. I built my own life, my own family, my own future. And honestly, that's more than I ever dreamed of when I walked down that driveway with my suitcase. A few weeks after that dinner, I tried to go back to normal life. I focused on work, on my foundation, on the people who actually showed up for me. I told myself I didn't care anymore. But some nights when the house was quiet and the lake was still, I thought about them. Not with anger. With a strange, dull sadness. I wondered if they ever thought about me the way I thought about them. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. No return address. Just my name written in shaky handwriting. I almost threw it away. But something in me stopped. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope for a long time before opening it. It smelled like my childhood home, like old paper and coffee and laundry detergent. My hands trembled as I unfolded the pages. "Dear Emma, I don't know how to start this. I've rewritten this letter a dozen times. Every version sounded too small for the damage we caused. Your mother doesn't know I'm writing this. She still thinks pretending is easier than admitting she failed you. But I can't pretend anymore. I've been thinking about your life since you walked out of that restaurant, since you walked out of that house with your suitcase. And honestly, I've been thinking about it for years. We failed you. We chose comfort over fairness. We chose the child who needed less effort. We chose the path that required the least confrontation. When we took your college fund for Lily's wedding, I knew it was wrong. I should have stopped it. I should have fought for you. I didn't. I told myself you were strong, that you'd figure it out, that Lily needed us more. That was a lie I used to excuse my cowardice. You needed us too. We just didn't show up. I watched you grow into someone incredible from a distance. I saw your graduation photos, your company in the news, your foundation. I felt proud, but also ashamed that I wasn't part of that journey. You didn't just succeed despite us. You succeeded without us. That realization has haunted me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship. I just needed you to know that I see it now. We broke your trust, your security, and your sense of family. And you were right to walk away. If you ever decide to talk, I'll be here. If you never do, I understand. You deserve better parents. And I'm sorry we weren't them. Dad. I sat there for a long time, the paper shaking in my hands. I thought I would feel angry or vindicated. Instead, I felt something like grief. Not for what happened, but for what could have been. A week later, Lily showed up at my door. No warning, no call. I opened it and froze. She looked different, older, tired, human. She held an envelope in her hand. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in the living room, sunlight spilling across the floor. She kept staring at the envelope like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I read Dad's letter to you," she said. "He showed me a copy." I didn't say anything. She took a deep breath. I've been thinking about our childhood, about the wedding, about everything. Her voice cracked. I didn't realize how much they took from you to give to me. I was so focused on being the perfect daughter that I didn't see what it cost you. She opened the envelope and slid a check across the table. It was for the exact amount of my college fund, adjusted for inflation, plus interest. My heart stopped. I can't erase what happened, she said, but I can give this back. It was never supposed to be mine. I was a kid, but I wasn't blind. I just chose not to look. Tears ran down her face. I'm sorry, Emma. For the wedding, for letting them treat you like you didn't matter, for never standing up for you. You were always right, and I was too scared to admit it. She looked at me like she was afraid I would disappear if she blinked. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to say it out loud. I stared at the check. For years, that money represented everything I lost. Security, trust, family. Now it was just paper. I looked at Lily. I don't need the money, I said quietly. Her eyes widened. I needed parents who cared, I continued. I needed a sister who noticed. That's what hurt, not the dollars. She nodded, crying harder. I know, but please take it. Let it be something, even if it's symbolic. I thought for a moment. Then I folded the check and put it in my pocket. Okay, I said, but I'm donating it to the scholarship fund, for kids like me. She nodded, relieved and ashamed at the same time. A few days later, Mom called. For the first time, she didn't sound cheerful. She sounded small. I heard about the letter, she said, and Lily's visit. I didn't answer. I didn't realize how badly I messed up, she whispered. I thought I was doing what was best for the family. I didn't see you slipping away. Her voice broke. I was wrong. You were always right, and I don't know how to fix that. I looked out at the lake. You can't fix the past, I said. But you can stop pretending it didn't happen. She cried quietly. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry. I didn't suddenly become close with them. We didn't turn into a perfect family. But something shifted. They stopped defending themselves. They stopped rewriting history. They finally told the truth. And that mattered. Sometimes Lily visits with her son. He calls me Aunt Emma. He sits on the dock and asks me about my company and my house and my life. He tells me he wants to be an inventor. I smile and tell him he can be anything. Sometimes Dad visits too. He brings old photos. We talk about the past without pretending it was perfect. Mom is quieter now, more careful, more honest. I use the return money to expand the scholarship program. Every year, I meet students who remind me of myself. Kids whose parents can't or won't help. Kids who are brilliant and scared and determined. I tell them my story. Not as a revenge tale, but as proof that neglect doesn't define you. Looking back, I don't think I was the unlucky child. I was the unseen child. And in being unseen, I learned how to see myself. My parents finally admitted they were wrong. My sister finally admitted I was right. And I finally stopped needing their approval. Sometimes closure doesn't come from winning. It comes from being heard. And for the first time in my life, they were listening.